Actually, my report will not be a standalone single package. Other voices are going to speak too, meaning they'll be adding their voices to my voice in order to add additional layers and additional depth to the report that you need to hear as a diocese. In 2011 and 12, we engaged in a process as a diocese that we called Shaping Our Future. Many of you, I hope and trust, will remember the Shaping Our Future gatherings that were held in several locations across the diocese. Each was well attended, so I hope you also remember that hundreds of you gave our Futuring Task Group thousands of points of information, thousands of data points, which when condensed became 5 diocesan priorities. This is the 5th convention since Shaping Our Future. And during each of those conventions, this is my 6th as bishop, I have consistently used our 5 diocesan priorities as the main outline points of my address. Do you remember the priorities? Do they spring to mind? Number 1, grow congregations. Number 2, grow personally. Number 3, grow in community. Number 4, grow leaders. And number 5, grow in compassion. After 5 years, I'll grant you it may be time to renew these priorities, to articulate them anew and afresh so that we can be stirred up a bit again. But even after 5 years, these are the guides that steer my day-to-day, that inform my decisions and those of the bishop's staff. It's this short list of priorities that determine what services the bishop's staff and I need to offer to, and how the staff and I will serve the congregations of and the parishes of the diocese. Our priority to grow leaders led this diocese to join with 3 other dioceses to start the Bishop Kemper School for Ministry. It follows on many other permutations or versions of schools for training people for ministry, which this diocese had done alone. I think it has taken on a vital role in forming new and much needed leadership, especially for our congregations, especially those in rural and small town areas. And that's not only about forming people for ordination. As some of you have discovered, and as I hope many more of you will discover, Bishop Kemper School for Ministry, or BKSM, now has a robust and growing program of education for lay people. Preparation for lay licensing for lay ministries happens through BKSM. Lay people who just want to learn more by taking classes online or in person, who just love to learn, can take classes and all that they want. You can stay at home in your pajamas and learn biblical Hebrew. And I'm sure you're all going to flock to that one. No offense, Richard. You can join a lively learning community and tackle a survey of Christian ethics and just a plethora of other topics. There's lots for all of us at BKSM. But that's not all we do to grow leaders. This diocese has one of the most comprehensive academies for vestry training in the Episcopal Church. And that's a bold thing to say, I know. But I've talked to a lot of other bishops, and our canon to the ordinary has talked to a lot of other canons to the ordinary. No diocese out there has as extensive a program to help vestries know and excel at the ministry of vestry member, or warden, or treasurer, or even parish administrator. As near as I can tell, we are at the top of the heap. We also offer a basic course in leadership that we call Leadership Boot Camp. You've heard about this before. It's for anyone who wants to be a leader or a better leader in the specific and challenging arena of church leadership. It begins with learning about yourself as a leader. What makes you tick? With what has your background gifted you? Do those gifts help or obstruct? It capitalizes on the finest ideas in institutional, corporate, and systems leadership. Adds to those concepts a thoroughgoing understanding of churches as systems and as emotionally tied groups of people, and challenges classmates to apply what they have learned in the real world of parish and congregational leadership. There are very few other dioceses doing this. How many of you are graduates of Leadership Boot Camp? There's got to be a few of you out there. Thank you very much for being graduates, taking the course, and applying what you're learning in your own settings of leadership. Leadership Boot Camp, though, is moving. It will now be an offering as part of BKSM for lay folks, for clergy folks, for all leader folk, and it will be available to the people of all 4 of the BKSM dioceses. That way, not only West Missouri will reap some benefit from this, but so will Kansas and Western Kansas and Nebraska, and so will the pool of available teachers increase as well. It will be offered as continuing education and formation for clergy, and just offered for all lay people who wish to take it. And some of you will find this great. Some of you will be mad at me for this. It will be shorter than it used to be. More concise, I should say. It will be offered 1 day a month for 4 months. It'll be 4 days, really packed days, 1 day each month over 4 months. We're able to offer it without the commitment of a 1 day a month for 9 months, which is what we've done in the past. And that's all because it's becoming part of BKSM, and we'll be able to use distance delivery and meaning online technology to help people take the course. You'll hear more about that. I'm not going to take much more time on that. And yet, as they say on TV, wait, there's more. I know from personal experience how draining and how challenging church leadership, spiritual leadership, can be for clergy and lay leaders alike. We're blessed in our diocese, and I don't want anybody to think I'm taking credit for this. I'm not. I had nothing to do with it, at least not with starting it. But in our diocese, we have a renewing and invigorating Cursillo movement. Cursillo and Leadership Boot Camp are 2 sides of the same coin. Leadership Boot Camp teaches theory and puts it in a scriptural and spiritual framework. Cursillo is all about the passion and love in which true Christ-like leaders need to walk, Christoform leaders, and about matching their footsteps to the footsteps of Jesus. If you've ever wondered about Cursillo, you should give it a try. If you've ever doubted that Cursillo could help your church, I invite you to come, taste, and see. My fellow clergy, you know how doubt about Cursillo exists in our ranks. It also exists in the ranks of lay people. Again, I say, come, taste, and see. Cursillo exists to build a passionate, Christ-centered group of leaders for the church. Try it and use it. I encourage you. You'll hear more about this soon as the next Cursillo weekend approaches, which will be in the fall. But you don't have to wait until that. You don't have to wait for a weekend in order to start participating and learn more about it. Come taste and see what Cursillo is all about by attending an Ultrea in the near future. If you want to know more about that, just ask someone who's involved. So, if you have ever gone to Cursillo, if you are a Cursiist, raise your hand. If you aren't raising your hand, you have an opportunity to talk to people near you. Not right now. In case you're wondering, Cursillo isn't some obscure cult within the church. That's a reputation that is somehow garnered. It has surprises that just might delight you, but it has no secrets. If you want to know, ask. Clergy too. Ask me. I'll tell you all about it. I ask you to try it. It's fun and life-giving and will renew your passion for your faith. But I promised to be shorter than usual, so I better go on and move ahead. Our diocese's priorities also call for us to encourage personal growth for each diocesan member. Guess what? BKSM, Leadership Boot Camp, and Cursillo help with this priority as well. But our commitment to the lifelong formation of Christian individuals is, across the board, not our strength. My travels throughout the diocese leave me wondering why we consistently keep having this gap in what we offer to one another and to the world. Many of our congregations are not effectively helping people be formed into the moral and spiritual likeness of Christ. To be honest, some are barely trying. It is a weakness. Unfortunately, it's a weakness across much of the Episcopal Church. Because of this, I want to make the development of healthy and vigorous formation programs for all ages, but especially adult formation, a true priority for the next phase of our diocesan life. The old joke is, if you confirm them, you'll never see them again. That's how you get rid of your bats in the belfry, by the way. You confirm them and they'll never come back. That's been too true for us in too much of our life. Too many of our adults feel like they're done and finished and formed when the bishop lays their hands on them at confirmation. And I assure you, from my point of view, there's still plenty to learn, plenty to grow into, plenty of ways to grow and become more Christ-like in our lives. The bishop's staff and I will be working hard on how we can work with you and your congregations and deaneries to really get some lifelong formation kick-started in this diocese. We have to make it a reality in many more lives than right now. You heard yesterday, and you'll hear later in our agenda, from groups within or associated with our diocesan family who have been integral in helping us grow in compassion, our third priority. Episcopal community services, Jubilee ministry centers, parish-based feeding programs, monetary donations to Episcopal relief and development, sending shampoo and soap to Haiti. All this is our growth in compassion. The list goes on of the way this diocese and the Episcopal Church reach out in ministries of mercy, and they're doing so much more and more. An exciting possibility in this priority area is doing ministries of mercy with ecumenical partners such as the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and other denominations. There's plenty of room for us to provide energies, resources, and programs of compassion alongside our Roman Catholic brothers and sisters, those from historically African American denominations, and all kinds of other partners. Some of these connections exist. We simply need to move those connections deeper and make them greater. Later, you're going to see a video from the Council of Churches of the Ozarks, which we support in our annual budget. This group crosses many, many denominational lines, and down here in the area of Springfield and in the Ozark, does a fantastic godly ministry in what we call our Southern Deanery, but what they call the Ozarks. One of our challenges is the need to move, though, from charity to engagement. This means we need to move from giving handouts of food and clothing and other things to engaging people and offering them real relationships. Not just a Band-Aid on their problem, but a relationship that can help them move out of their problem. Our presiding bishop, Michael Curry, more on him in a moment, has challenged us to see ourselves as a movement, the Jesus movement. And Jesus movement, the way, as it was called early on in scriptural history, is marked by three things. When the institution of church stops being an institution like and among other worldly institutions and returns to being a movement in the world to transform the world, when we stop propping up the status quo with religious language and platitudes and truly follow Jesus, the marks of our ministry will be that our ministry is loving, liberating, and life-giving. You will hear that a lot from the PB. You're hearing it from me. You may have already heard it from the PB. Loving, liberating, and life-giving. Speaking for me, that stirs my soul. That's what gets me up in the morning. Is everything your congregation does loving, liberating, and life-giving? We need to start asking ourselves that question. A lot. If we do what we do to prop up the institution, we need to ask, is that what Jesus died for? Our fourth priority is to grow in community. The expanded roles being taken on by our deaneries, deans, and deanery councils is one example of how we can grow in community. Expanding ecumenical partnerships, as mentioned earlier, is another way to build more and better community. In Raytown last month, we took another step in growing in community. A Lutheran pastor. Where's Owen? Where's Orrin? Is he here?
Right here.
Oh, there you are, sitting over in the corner, hiding. Okay. Orrin Cummins was installed as the rector of St. Matthew's Episcopal Church. That's the very first time we've lived truly into our full communion partnership with the Evangelical Lutheran Church that is now 12 years old. About time. Orrin, welcome amongst us. Glad you're here. Orrin also continues to serve his Elka parish, and the two memberships are getting to know one another by sharing hymn. It's marvelous. The Reverend Roger Gustafson, Orrin's other bishop, the bishop of the Central State Synod of the Elka Church, and our staffs and I have a dream of seeing more of this kind of cooperation between us and our full communion partners in Elka. There are other places around West Missouri where Lutheran and Episcopal parishes and clergy can serve one another and work alongside one another. We need to make that real, and that would be growing in community, in togetherness, and in expanding our relationships with other Episcopalians and with other Christian groups who are also part of the Jesus movement. Bishop Curry reminds us that we are the Episcopal branch of the Jesus movement, not the whole thing. Though some might not readily think of it in this way, the work we are doing with the consultants assigned by the presiding bishop in response to a request by our standing committee is also a way to enhance and embrace growing in community. The two consultants, Bishop Joe Burnett and Ms. Sandra Cole, visited our diocese recently, last month, to meet with our standing committee, our diocesan council, the bishop's staff, a few individuals of their own choice, and with me. Each meeting was fruitful, open, honest, and aimed at strengthening our diocese. I received a letter this past Wednesday from the consultants. I'd like to share part of it with you. I quote, "In the life of any organization, including dioceses, issues of miscommunication and trust can easily arise. When they do, a healthy organization looks for help from a third party, someone who can assist the leaders in holding the conversations needed to rebuild trust and strengthen lines of communication. That is what the process to be implemented in the Diocese of West Missouri will be designed to do. The bishop, his staff, and members of the Standing Committee and Diocesan Council are of one mind in their desire to strengthen the Diocese of West Missouri and to move forward together to accomplish God's call to us. What they have written is true for me to the best of my knowledge, and I know it's true for me from the bottom of my heart. We want to strengthen our diocese and carry out the mission God has given to the church in the most faithful way possible. I'm going to see it through and do my part, and I trust all of you will too. There remains one diocesan priority: grow congregations. For much of the rest of this convention, you're going to hear of an unfolding plan, a multifaceted plan to meet the call of this priority. You'll hear of exciting things that will happen in the next months that will help all of us to meet this pressing need. I will not here steal all of the canon to the ordinary's thunder. He'll be speaking to us later, but I will wax a little philosophical. As I mentioned earlier, the church, particularly our Episcopal Church, has become, in many ways, too much of an institution. It's lost the edginess of a movement, of a transformational movement. Our presiding bishop is calling us back to, as C.S. Lewis once said, keeping the main thing the main thing. Growing congregations means evangelism. Evangelism means sharing the good news of God and Christ in myriad ways. The good news calls the world to reconciliation, and reconciliation is not just about getting along amicably. Reconciliation is about caring for one another deeply, about being our sister's or brother's keeper, about preserving and healing the created order, this fragile earth, our island home. Our presiding bishop and primate is challenging us to get back to the core of the message of the movement Jesus started a long time ago in a faraway place, but which is so very relevant and desperately needed in our own time and place. So being the Jesus movement means telling people about Jesus and having a passion for Jesus, for helping the world to know Jesus. The marks of the Jesus movement, as I said a few minutes ago, are loving, liberating, and life-giving. Loving means sharing Jesus. Liberating in all its forms is Jesus' mission. Giving life is God's whole loving purpose. That's why the creation was created out of God's abundant to the point of overflowing love. But evangelism, oh, that word. Evangelism, sharing our stories, being comfortable talking about Jesus and the role faith in Jesus plays in our lives. You're going to hear about opportunities to learn and to practice and to do just that. These will precede and build up to the visit of Michael Curry, our presiding bishop and primate, in May of next year, from May 5 through 7 to be exact, and I hope I got the dates right. If I don't, the canon for the ordinary will correct me. Bishop Curry is coming to speak to us and to those who are not part of our Episcopal Church, and to those who are part of no church, and to those who may not even care about faith or God or Jesus or any of what, for us, is why we live and move and have our being. Mark your calendars and listen closely when Canon Rodgers tells you more later in our agenda. You are also a little later going to hear the results of our branding initiative. Tracy Temple, who has so ably guided us through this, will speak to us about what branding is in a marketing and advertising sense, how that can be useful to our congregations, parishes, and dioceses, and about the market research that has helped us refine the stories, the message we need to use to tell the world, close and far, about the Episcopal Church. As many of you have experienced, the Episcopal Church is a small brand. We have always been a small church in membership numbers. And we currently have a bit of an identity crisis. When I was a child, I remember when the U.S. population grew and crossed the 200 million mark. It happened in my lifetime. At about that same time, in 1965, the Episcopal Church had approximately 3.6 million members. We made up 0.37% of the U.S. population. Not a big number. Now, our membership numbers hover right around 2 million, probably slightly under. We make up only 0.006% of the United States population that is now 320 million people. In my lifetime, we haven't quite doubled, but we're well over a 50% growth as a nation. Our percentage as part of that population has shrunk considerably. There's a whole catalog of reasons for that, I suppose. But one of those reasons is what we are and what we stand for is not well known. Christianity in this country, and by that I mean authentic Christianity, also has an identity crisis. In an astoundingly short period of time, Christianity has gone from the center, the moral and spiritual foundation of our nation, to the margins of our society. Partly because there are so many highly contrasting voices claiming to speak the true faith, claiming to speak what Jesus Christ would authentically speak, claiming to have, know, and teach the will of God for all humanity. It's a confusing jumble of voices, and it for those outside the church, it becomes all too daunting to try and figure it out. With such a small voice, it's easy for our voice, the Episcopal voice, to be drowned out. And since our voice, to be frank, isn't the majority voice in many of the locales where we live in West Missouri, we have even more of an uphill climb to accomplish for us to be heard. Our branding initiative, like the PB's visit, is intended to help us be heard, to get our story out, and to help each of us know how to tell our story in compelling ways. Now, we will get back to this, and you're going to hear more about it. But as I alluded earlier, the church as an institution has become its own point. We too often live and act in and as the church as if the continuing existence of the church is the goal. Too much, too often, we've been selling the church instead of introducing Jesus. In doing that, we've settled into a pattern of life where we contradict Jesus' message. When we should be pilgrims walking the way of a movement, we've become settlers and built structures and buildings and museums. Instead of those structures and buildings serving as tools that help us to do the work of ministry, too often they become the point, the focus, the aim, the goal. The church's reason for existing. Jesus is the church's reason for existing.
Amen.
Drifting into complacency and loving comfort, we've lost the profound joy and passion of being pilgrims on a noble quest. The church should be a place where people find such joy, where we have such joy that we can't help but invite and welcome people into our joy. Is that how it is for you? Every week when you go to church, is it an experience of joy for you? If not, it's time to ask why not. To what are we welcoming people? To our passion? To our pursuit of abundant living? To our communities and our individual lives? Will they see in us the incarnation of the truth that God is for us, on our side, in love with us, and seeking our love through our love for brothers and sisters? Will they see us immersed in our belief? Or will they be unable to see any difference between us and the Lions, Rotary, Kiwanis, or any other service clubs? Or worse, will they see us as the same as the local country club, but with less fun games to play? Instead, let's return to being pilgrims. It's time to get desperate. We need to be desperate, crazy, viral, relentless, generous Christians. Our faith and joy and passion need to be as contagious as the plague. We need to be desperate for people to know Jesus, to experience the loving, liberating, life-giving good news from Jesus. We need to want transformation and conversion for those we love, even if they don't want it. And even if they don't know they want it, we need to want it for them. We need to love so loud that it is deafening. So deafening that people can't ignore it, but are compelled to come and check it out. Now I will conclude. But please understand that this address has been designed to set up 2 other presentations which are going to follow. And beyond those, to prepare us for a conversation. We're going to have a town hall meeting in just a few moments. I'll talk more about that and how we'll do that in a bit. But the purpose of the town hall is to give us time and space and opportunity to come to grips with a very real, very significant issue in our life as a diocese. Money. By money, I mean stewardship of the material resources God has entrusted to individuals, families, parishes, congregations, dioceses, and the church as a whole. None of that's ours. We don't own anything. God created it all, and He never gave up the deed. It's His. How we use it, what we do with it, that's what we need to talk about. We'll begin that conversation, our town hall meeting, by hearing from our diocesan treasurer, Mr. Caleb Cordonier.